admitted, yes.
All right, thank you very much. Call to order the City of North Bend, Washington City Council meeting for January 18th, 2022 via virtual meeting. And will the clerk please confirm the roll?
All council members are present, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. First on our agenda this evening is the consent agenda. We have 7 items. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Loudbeck, motion by Mr. Godell, second by Mr. Loudbeck. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. This time we'll open up to citizen comments. At this time, if you would like to speak to an item not on tonight's agenda, please indicate in the chat box and you'll be called upon. You'll get up to 3 minutes to speak. Please do start with your name and address for the record.
Mike Thomas, you're free to speak.
Good afternoon, good evening, council members and guests. Michael Thomas, 1231 LaForest Drive, SE. Thank you everyone for attending. I had some comments about the recent garbage collection situation. I wish to thank city leadership for declaring a very appropriate emergency for failure of our garbage service provider to provide timely service last week. No doubt many citizens have been impacted by this. And no doubt the city has incurred costs, and I would encourage the city to look to recover those costs from our garbage service provider for its failure to provide weekly and timely service. As a citizen, I'm also concerned about what I see on the garbage provider service website and after phone calls to that garbage service providers regarding the missed pickups. There appears to be some lack of recognition about the volume of trash for those pickups that were missed on Wednesday. Appears there's representation that it's double when really, the service was missed for 3 weeks in a row. So I'm concerned about any overbilling. It also appears that there's non-uniform issuance of credits by that garbage service provider. Some folks appear to be getting refunds while others are not. And citizens also have incurred many costs to either dispose of materials themselves or take it to collection sites or dispose of it in other ways. I view there's a view that citizens have been harmed by this. Of course, in addition to, citizens should not bear additional tax costs for the city's efforts to provide service, which are in fact, quite very much appreciated. So on another matter, and I noticed it's a later item, was I'd like to remind the city that we continue to monitor water as an issue, and I have not yet seen the city add any new mitigation sources to address its water shortage. In my view, the project such as Hobo Springs enhancements is a pilot, and its foundational study is conducted by an engineer in training that requires supervision. We continue to be in dialogue with Seattle Public Utilities to monitor the situation. I also wish to speak against the Watershed Forum and its endorsement for the city's sham water conservation ordinance, which took away water from citizens who used it to water their lawns and gardens and maintain their green space, while the city continues to develop at a breakneck pace, incurring hundreds of additional development units of water. I'm very discouraged by the leadership of the Watershed Forum. This, however, does not extend to certain members that have had dialogues with. And I know that there's good members and good people that work in that forum, but I am very—
Summary statement, Michael, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I would hope that folks would take into account the conduct and endorsement of the Watershed Forum. I certainly don't support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call, either in the chat box or by *9 if you're called in by phone for public comment. Seeing anybody else, Dana?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much. We will move on. Announcements, presentations, and appointments. Item 8 on your agenda is a presentation by the Snoqualmie Watershed Forum. Do we have an introduction to Ms. Ostergaard? And is she on? I see her on the call. Is there an introduction by staff? Mark?
Alyssa, several of our council members know her, I believe, being on the forum in the past. So I'll let her just go ahead and kick this off.
All right, great. Appreciate that, Alyssa. Thank you for being with us tonight. And we would love to hear your comments.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to present to your group this evening. It's been a few years since we've been here, I think since 2018. And there are quite a few new faces here. So are you able to see my screen there?
We are. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So the Snoqualmie Watershed Forum is a committee that operates under an interlocal agreement between the 8 parties that you see here on the screen. King County is the service provider. So the interlocal agreement is with the 4 cities of Carnation, Snoqualmie, North Bend, and New Duval, as well as the Snoqualmie Indian Tribe, the Tulalip tribes, and the town of Skykomish. The forum has been operating since 1998. The forum became established out of work that began in the mid-1990s when local groups and jurisdictions saw that Chinook salmon and bull trout were about to be listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act by the federal government, and locals were not so interested in having the federal government tell them what they needed to do to recover these salmon. So they decided to get together, work cooperatively, and do their own science and planning. And the result was forums were established around Puget Sound, and each of the 14 watersheds developed their own salmon recovery plan based on recent science. In the Snohomish Basin, where we are, the Snohomish Basin Salmon Recovery Forum approved this white document you see here, the Snohomish River Basin Salmon Conservation Plan, in 2005. And that was incorporated by NOAA as part of the Puget Sound Salmon Recovery, the federal government's Puget Sound Salmon Recovery Plan in 2007. In 2007, steelhead were also listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. So it's a bit confusing in our watershed because we have 2 forums. So I'll attempt to explain. The Snohomish Basin Salmon Recovery Forum is the lead entity. They're housed out of Snohomish County. Our watershed is comprised of the Snoqualmie and Skykomish rivers, which flow in a northwest direction to across the county line from King County into Snohomish County, where they become the Snohomish River, and then they flow into Puget Sound in the Everett-Tulalip Bay area. The Snohomish Forum is responsible for the salmon recovery plan, any updates to it. They're responsible for reporting on its implementation and progress towards salmon recovery to the state and federal government. And they are also responsible to the state for running a state grant round under the Salmon Recovery Funding Board. So they convene experts to review project proposals and make recommendations to the state for that state funding. So our group, the group that I'm the staff team lead for, is the Snoqualmie Watershed Forum. So we are responsible for not only salmon recovery, but also water issues in the King County portion of the basin. We work very cooperatively with the Snohomish Forum, and we do report on implementation and progress towards salmon recovery in the King County portion of the basin and help with plan updates and things as we can. So the forum meets 6 times per year, and they're supported by a cost share among the interlocal agreement parties in the proportions listed here. The forum actually includes not only these 8 parties to the interlocal agreement, but also has 3 citizen members, a member from the King Conservation District, and a rotating seat from a nonprofit. There are 2 new citizen member seats that have recently been approved but not yet filled. And these are tribal youth seats from Snoqualmie Tribe and Tulalip tribes. The cost shares and the operating budget of just under $600,000 for 2022 supports 2.7 staff. As you see here, we have me, the lead for the team, the salmon recovery manager. We have our project coordinator, Corey Zyla. We have a half-time technical coordinator, Emily Davis. Half of her position is supported by King County Surface Water Management Funds. And then Carla Nelson is our administrative coordinator. She spends 20% of her time supporting our team and the rest of her time supporting the other 2 watershed teams at King County. The city's cost shares are offset by some funds that come from the King County Flood Control District out of what we call the Cooperative Watershed Management Grant Program. This is approximately $2 million a year that the King County Flood Control District allocates to our forum so we run a grant program to give out funding for education, habitat restoration, and monitoring projects. And it also helps offset the city's cost shares because the population of the cities is so small compared to the other. It's a formula that's used for all the watersheds in King County, and this just makes it more equitable in terms of the per capita cost for our small cities. And currently this year, the North Bend's cost share is just over $4,000. So that's kind of about the governance structure of the forum. I'm going to just give you some really brief information now about what we actually do. To recover Chinook, we're really kind of focusing hard on this because Chinook are still at less than 6% of the population target that was set in 2005 when that salmon recovery plan was finished. So our group coordinates recovery efforts in the King County portion of the basin, as I said, so we're always updating the science and helping identify project sponsors who can implement projects that are identified in the plan that are in the most important areas that have been identified by science that this will help recover Chinook. So we're really focused on, we have plenty of spawning habitat because we don't have a lot of salmon coming back every year because the numbers are so low. The real key to recovery is rearing habitat. And so that means taking levees, setting them back, basically giving these fish a chance to have the baby salmon, a chance to have that rearing habitat, which is like slower flows, lots of bank area, lots of large wood to hide under. And so those priority areas for that rearing habitat are right below Snoqualmie Falls along the main stem, in the Tolt River and downstream of it in the Snoqualmie, in the Raging River and downstream of it in the Snoqualmie, and then also the South Fork Skokomish. Above Snoqualmie Falls, it is really important to protect the hydrology and the water quality, since, as we know, all the water flows downstream. So protecting forest cover, restoring streams, wetlands, and lakes, and improving water quality is really important up where you all are. So this map shows under the first 10 years what we were able to accomplish in terms of habitat improvements. And you can see there were quite a few projects spread throughout the basin, but with some concentrations around the Tolt, around the Tolt River in this area, and around the downstream of the Raging River in the Falls City area. We're currently updating this map with our 15-year progress report, so we'll be able to report on that to you shortly. But we were able to update some of the funding information. So as far as our funding accomplishments, we've been able to allocate about $16.8 million since 1998. And that includes leveraging over $40 million, which a lot of times the Cooperative Watershed Management Grant and King Conservation District Fund, are used as match for these state funding programs such as SRFB, which stands for Surfboard or Salmon Recovery Funding Board, and PSAR, which stands for Puget Sound Acquisition and Restoration. And there's also Floodplains by Design funding, which is also a state grant program that we had been able to leverage 3.3 million up until 2020. And last year we got another 15 million for that for a project in the Falls City area. The chart here just shows that there's a really big mix of funding that state, federal, and mostly local that goes for every year for habitat restoration projects, and that the red line here shows what our estimated funding need would have been, about 10 million a year. And since we didn't meet that, we still needed to meet those habitat targets in the next 10 years. So to meet that gap, now we're up to needing $19.2 million a year. And so you can see, for the most part, we really aren't meeting that for habitat restoration. As far as benefits to North Bend, the city has been able to be awarded almost $1 million in project funding for quite a few different restoration projects, planning projects, and maintenance projects. So that's the technical assistance that we're able to offer with our staff team is definitely one of the things that we like to encourage our partners to utilize. Well, looking ahead, we plan to continue supporting our interlocal agreement partners and other nonprofits doing project implementation. Again, just determining where the best places are to do the projects that are going to benefit the salmon the most. We're seeing that a lot of new funding sources are coming online that support projects that have multiple benefits. So flood risk reduction, fish benefits, as well as benefits for farmers and recreation. So projects that can meet multiple, that can benefit multiple stakeholders on the same ground are increasingly getting easier to fund. Fish barrier removal funding is also becoming more available. Our group is also continuing to focus on policies and legislation to support natural resource improvements, and also just continuing to work to maintain public support, political will for this work, determining what we can do in the face of changing climate and hydrology, and maintaining watershed health in the face of human population growth around the region. So with that, I will stop sharing the slides. That was my last slide, and just see if people have questions or points for discussion.
Lisa, thank you very much for that. And I would say on behalf of the city, we're very pleased that we've been able to contribute to this as well as receive the grant funding. For those that aren't aware, we've made some significant changes to the code over the last number of years, increasing setbacks from streams, adding cover requirements. We've done some plantings in cooperation with others to help in those things, and seen improvements in that cover for the streams as well as water quality. So those are very good things. Second thing I wanted to point out was that moments ago, before you started presenting, we did formally, and along with a lot of other regional appointments, Councilmember Mark Jocelyn just became our representative to your group. So we'll welcome him to get involved in that. And then, of course, I am the representative for the city for the flood control district, which obviously we coordinate pretty darn closely. With that, I'll open it up to council comments or questions. Mr. Rosen.
Yeah, how are we doing with salmon recovery? What can you share some of the success? I mean, numbers, are they starting to come back? Are we seeing some of the results that you hoped for?
Yeah, I would say, as I mentioned, Chinook are only at about 6% of their historic numbers. So we're seeing in the Snoqualmie around somewhere between 700 and 1,200 Chinook adults coming back each year. The good news, however, is that we are monitoring baby salmon as they leave our watershed. There's a smolt trap to capture those baby fish and count them near Carnation. And we have seen about a threefold increase in the numbers of baby salmon coming out the last 3 years. So we are super hopeful that the ocean conditions and the gamut that those fish have to run on their way to, BC and Alaska, and then come back. We're super hopeful that that will result in more Chinook coming back. They tend to spend about 4 years out in the marine environment before they come back to spawn again. So it takes us a few years to see the results. So since we're kind of working in this landlocked part of the basin, what we can do is set back levees, make the freshwater environment better for them, plant a lot of native trees along the rivers. And our counterparts in Snohomish County have been doing a lot of work on the estuary, which is also a really key piece for juvenile salmon survival. They've restored well over 1,000 acres of estuary habitat up in Snohomish County, and that will take some time to develop into highly functional estuary. And now next they're hoping to work on some of the upper estuary, which is probably less tidally influenced and a little bit better for those salmon. So we have been making a lot of habitat progress, and we really are hopeful that it just takes patience, but we're hopeful that it will start to result in some better returns.
Well, thank you. Thanks for everything you do, and keep us posted. Hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll start to see some of those successes.
Okay, thanks for the
Thank you.
question.
Thank you. Other council.
Are we concerned about the climate warming and the river not being as cold as it used to? And is that a problem for the salmon? And also the dams that are in the northern part of our state, is that not helpful for salmon recovery?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our staff team helped put together a white paper on climate impacts of salmon, particularly in our basin, and the effects are pretty significant. Salmon really do rely on cold water, and with warming air and reduced snowpack that we expect to see in the future, we think it will not only, the warmer air will warm up the water, and the lack of snowpack will also not only warm up the water, but also change the timing of when the water is flowing down the rivers. Instead of it coming down in the spring as the snow is melting, it's more likely to come in really big storms in the wintertime as more rain. And so that definitely impacts the fish. The spring is when the juveniles are migrating downstream and into Puget Sound, so they kind of rely on those spring freshets and that cold water. In addition, species that are more threatened, like steelhead and bull trout, they tend to like those upper reaches of the basin that are very, very cold. And so warming air is definitely a problem for them. So we're doing a lot of work in conjunction with a lot of federal, tribal partners to track temperature and look at novel things that we might be able to try to help improve temperatures, such as they find that small clearings in forests can help the snow stay longer. Lots of riparian tree planting can help so that there's shade along streams, and maintaining wetlands and beavers is really good for keeping waters cold. And so there's other things like that I could probably go on much longer than people would be interested. But you also asked about dams in the northern part of the state. And I think that, you know, dams in general, especially with big reservoirs, they really alter the natural processes of a river. So rivers kind of act as a conveyor belt for logs and gravel. And those are two things that salmon have come to rely on for their spawning and rearing life stages, which is what is really impacting them and why a lot of them are endangered. So dams kind of stop the wood and they stop the gravel from moving down. They can also have an effect on water temperatures, depending on where along that dam the water is released. They can have an effect on oxygen levels. They can also block fish passage if that's not built into the dam. So depending on what dams you're talking about, yes, they can have a very detrimental impact. And it's always good to take a look at a dam and see, is it still necessary? Is it still functioning for society for its best purpose?
Any other questions, comments from council members? All right, seeing none. Alyssa, again, thank you very much for being with us tonight, giving us that update. We really appreciate your work, and we look forward to hearing from Mr. Jocelyn in the future on where things are.
Okay. Thank you, council, and thank you, everybody. Very much appreciate the time.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, council commission and committee reports. I think we will start with Ms. Miller on community and economic development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see, CED met for the first time in this brand new year today, January 18th, 2022, by Microsoft Teams at approximately 3 p.m. I'm thrilled to be back as chair, and welcome back Councilmember Elwood for another year, and welcome our newest council member, Jocelyn, to the committee. There were 4 items on our full agenda. We revisited the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition resolution. We appreciated Selma being available to us for answering any questions. Rebecca filled us in on the ordinance amending North Bend Municipal Code Section 2.28.010 relating to planning commission appointments. We also talked to the interlocal cooperation agreement for Snoqualmie Valley Housing Needs Assessment, and we ended our discussion involving a possible development agreement. Thanks to everyone for attending and your efforts today, and thanks to the city staff for their preparation. CED next meets February 15th.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Elwood, anything for finance and administration? I know you haven't met.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We have not met yet, but we will meet tentatively scheduled for February 1st, 4 p.m. It'll be a virtual meeting. So check out the city website to understand more information about when and if we actually have that meeting. I'm sure we will. Dawn has a lot on her plate, so we need to get cracking. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Public health and safety, Ms. Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So public health and safety, we met at 4 p.m. on January 11th via Microsoft Teams. We had a police update. 9 new officers have been hired. They are currently working with minimum numbers of officers, and officers are working 12-hour shifts. They said it's fragile, but it's working at this time. We also had a fire update. COVID has taken a toll on staffing with Eastside Fire and Rescue. They have an average of 15 workers a day are calling in. They're trying to fill 25 officers by fall, and 21 have been hired, and are being processed and trained. They are working on the wildfire prevention program for the summer. And we also talked about the snow event we just had. So we talked about the roads and the prolonged snow and ice that we all experienced with below freezing temperatures. We've been brainstorming different snow removal strategies for the future, metal tips versus ceramic tips versus plastic tips for our snow plows. Can we use de-ice or can we not? We're having our water scientist, Nicole, looking into that, but apparently we have 100 private wells. So de-icer is potentially a no, but we're looking into it. And ongoing discussions on how to handle future snow events and what worked well and what didn't. And that's what we're working on.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Loudenbach, what a surprise. Transportation and Public Works.
Always a pleasant surprise, Your Honor. Thank you. We last met December 14th, and we had a presentation from WashDOT on an upcoming SR 18 improvement project, not the one that we're all so anxiously awaiting at the intersection with I-90, but a little bit further up the hill. And we talked about potential delays and traffic modifications that'll be necessary for that project. It's more in the Hobart-Issaquah road exit area. And there's going to be some substantial regrading, widening, and embankment work that's going to go on there. But they don't anticipate any major closures, only small, short-lived ones, and probably some traffic modifications down to flaggers or one road going each direction. That'll be coming up soon. We also talked about accepting some TIB matching funds, local agency agreement with WashDOT to administer $1.3 million for a roundabout project. And Tom Moore helped us out with the closing out a parking lot project. Our next meeting will be on the 25th at 4 p.m. and will be held virtually. That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Rosen.
Thank you, Your Honor. We met last Tuesday. We had a special work study on the ULID. We discussed at length some ideas and ways that we can reduce the impact of the ULID on the residential properties out there. Unfortunately, I was only able to attend the first 15 minutes of the meeting. Mr. Elwood, if you don't mind, I'll let you give a better summary than I, since you were there.
Thank you. Yes, we had a very good in-depth discussion. Some of the key topics, as Mr. Rosen just pointed out, was how do we reconcile residential assessments for the benefit with respect to the commercial assessments in the entire ULID? Some of the key topics that came up is, how do we look at this with development, paying for development, and that particular focus for the council. The other focus of the council is to encourage economic growth, but not be borne on the back of the residents. So there was a lot of lengthy discussion in here, even some exploration of, are there other options or innovative ways to get sewer out in that area? Mr. Rigos was informing us and instructing us and educating us on the benefit of a centralized system versus a decentralized system. So there was a lot of good discussion on that front. My takeaway at the end of the meeting is I think council is still kind of split on if the ULID should still be what it is. I know, Your Honor, you're going to take back some of the notes and the commentary to figure out next steps. So it'll be interesting to understand where that goes. But in sum, I think there are a lot of us on this board that want to see things reassessed with the residents not included in the commercial ULID. But I think there is alignment across the council that we all want the commercial growth. We want the commercial properties out there to have the sewer that they need It's just we need to reassess and really take a step back and understand if the costs that are going to the residents in that area is necessary and appropriate. That's my summary. If any of my other colleagues would like to chime in, I know it may be a little bit more weighted on my end because I spoke a lot at it, but I definitely yield to any of you others who want to add other context or perhaps a different interpretation.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Mr. Godhealth, Eastside Fire and Rescue.
Thank you, Your Honor. You know, as the COVID impacts continue to remain in the community, we've pushed off any meetings that aren't via Teams or via Zoom till after March. We discussed the December COVID booster operations. Eastside Fire and Rescue delivered vaccinations to 856 individual patients, targeted campaign at the most vulnerable populations, homebound individuals, adult care facilities, low income and housing residents. Provided 2 weekend booster clinics at Snoqualmie Tribal Land, providing vaccines for tribal members, families, employees. Continue to offer booster shots to all our EFR partners, adjacent jurisdiction personnel and family members. Omicron is Council Member Colin mentioned, has had an impact. We've been seeing on an average of 15 personnel out per day because of COVID. When we ask the question about how that is compared to last year, it's probably maybe a little higher, but equal, because last year we didn't have the advent of Woodinville as part of our organization. So we've grown in size. So those percentages are different. He discussed the COVID-19 lawsuit that's being waged against the fire chiefs, fire departments of King County, and local fire chiefs. There was a hearing where it was rejected as a class action suit and rejected the premise of prepayment to employees who have been aggrieved. As Heather said, we do have, we started with 25 conditional hiring officers, are now down to 21 after the background and medical screening. We're waiting on psychological screening to process them and then put out final offers. We're hoping to have 21 into the next academy. PFAS, we were supposed to have a meeting. We didn't have it. The biggest issue with PFAS is it has now moved to what they call the Model Toxins Control Act process, which affects our funding. Up till now, we've been getting 100% grant funding. We're currently trying to get $750,000 that was earmarked for us this year from DOE before that becomes a process, because once it does, it then requires 50% matching. So we'll see how we move forward. As Heather talked, we are looking at approving the wildfire prevention group to start working with our residents throughout the community on that. The other good news is they're going to embark on the 4th fire cadet class. I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but there's a fire cadet class that they've done 4 of them, brings in young kids to learn about the fire services, and they become volunteers at a lot of different events. So if you have any young kids under the age of 15 that would like to get involved, please check out the website at Eastside Fire and Rescue. That's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you very much. Ms. Deming, commissions.
Thank you. The Planning Commission last met on December 9th and discussed and provided a recommendation of approval for their 2022 work program and docket list, which was on consent tonight. The Planning Commission will next meet on January 27th and will hold a public hearing and provide a recommendation on amendments to the city's floodplain management regulations. We're looking at increasing the allowable size of accessory structures, such as a detached garage, to follow an increase in the permitted size in updated FEMA guidance on this topic. The Parks Commission did not meet in December. They will meet on January 26th and discuss and provide a recommendation on the staff prepared draft of their 2021 summary report and tentative 2022 work program. The chair of the Parks Commission will present this report and work program to the council at an upcoming council meeting in February. The Economic Development Commission did not meet this last month. They will meet on January 25th and will continue to work on the economic development plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Regional committees, Mr. Laudenbach, anything from PIC?
Yes, PIC met last Wednesday. The essence of the entire meeting was an introduction because we have so many new members. What is PIC? How does it function? What are the rules of the road, so to speak? And we had formal introductions, and we had 50 some people on the Zoom meeting, so it took a while. But next meeting will be a little bit more efficient and tackle a bunch of issues. That was it, Your Honor.
I would hate to tease you on that, but you know, PIC, did you guys figure out what it is you do? Should we say that PIC is the Public Issues Committee?
PIC is the Public Issues Committee, and it is a part and parcel of the Sound Cities Association. It is the policy recommendation body where we deliberate amongst each other on the pressing issues of the day.
Thank you, sir.
In case anybody wants to know what it is.
Thank you, sir.
Some of us appreciate that very much.
Any other regional reports? I know a lot of folks just reorg just this month.
Yeah, I have a Sound City Association King County Board of Health update from
Thank
today. It was held today at 10 a.m. via Zoom. There is some good news. Apparently, the Omicron surge in King County has maybe peaked and appears to be in a downward trend, much like New York City. Fingers crossed. More good news, King County has the highest vaccination rate in the country, so bravo, everybody, good job. There are concerns about hospital capacity. They are seeing 69 COVID patients admitted a day. That's double of our previous surges. Staffing in the hospitals is a problem with their staff calling in sick. Hospitals are having a hard time discharging patients because they have nowhere to go, even though they're not needing to be in the hospital anymore. So that's making a backup in the hospitals. And we are still working on getting people vaccinated and booster shots. However, today, you can order free COVID tests at www.covidtest.gov. I tested it out. It's 4 free tests per family, and it's completely free of charge, and they're mailing it right away, and it should be to your house in 7 to 10 days.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And of course, we always think of you when we're talking about overcrowding in the hospitals, and we do know that's severe. Any other regional reports? Mr. Godhelp?
Yeah, the Emergency Management Advisory Committee met, and it was mainly about the grants that are available coming into the new year. I'm sure we're aware of them, probably for a bunch of them there. And then on top of it, the caucus met, and on top of my board chair capability, I am now the vice chair for the Emergency Management Advisory Committee caucus.
Congratulations, I think.
I don't know. Fun for punishment, but there's a bunch of good grants that we might look at, and I forward some of those information off to the people.
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Elwood is clapping along, not raising his hand.
It's a golf clap. It's just a golf clap.
Golf thing. Thank you.
Your Honor, just a point. I know Heather is very shy and withdrawn about her accomplishments, but she is also the most recent member of the King County Board of Health, the Sound Cities Association representative, alternative to that esteemed body. So in addition to doing the updates, she is now an official member of that board, and congratulations to Heather.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ross. I had my first orientation today and I'm really excited to be on this board. I think I have a lot to offer and help our city and also all of King County and all the 38 people in the Sound City Association, 38 cities. It's amazing.
That's great. We'll look forward to future reports on that. Thank you. With that, we will move along. Introductions, item number 9 on your agenda. AB 21-012, an ordinance amending North Bend Municipal Code 19.06.110 regarding street lighting. Ms. Stemming.
I'm going to go ahead and have Jamie, our senior planner, introduce this ordinance.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. The proposed municipal code amendment before you tonight is a clarification of what type, color, and details the city desires for street lighting when capital projects or new development occurs. Former council member Garcia suggested this amendment to ensure that we have electrical boxes and fixtures for banners and flower pots when new poles are added. City staff also wanted to add pictures and a general description of the light fixtures we want to see based on the street classification, so it would be easy to reference. We understand that manufacturers and availability might change, so there's allowance included in the code where approval would be granted from city. Additionally, we wanted to clarify that in the downtown commercial zone, we want to see lights replaced for pedestrians. Some of the current lights exist. They're attached to overhead power lines. So as those are replaced, we would want to see new poles installed. No public comment was received at the Planning Commission hearing on November 18th, 2021. The CED committee then reviewed the amendments at their December 14th, 2021 meeting, and they recommended approval. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead.
Any questions before we move to public comment?
I have a question.
Ms. Coleman.
Is it possible, and this is silly and not really important at all, but is it possible that we can get more holiday decorations on these upcoming street lighting or maybe in our roundabouts?
And are you looking specifically on new poles or just in general?
I'm thinking North Bend Way and Bendigo Boulevard.
So this proposal would add electricity to all new poles, which would allow us in the future to be able to expand holiday decorations.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a bad question at all, Ms. Coleman. That's definitely a consideration coming back. Mr. Elwood.
I was just going to say that wasn't a silly question. That's a great question because we need to illuminate our streets and holiday festive lighting, especially since it's so dark. So I'm just providing you some backup on that. That was not a silly question.
Thank you very much. If you would like to speak on this item, please indicate in the chat box or by *9. You'll be called on. You'll have up to 3 minutes to speak. Please start with name and address for the record.
Mike Thomas, you're free to speak.
Thank you. Michael Thomas, 1231 LaForest Drive, SE. I'm overall supportive of the addition of power outlets for additional decorative lighting. I think that's a great idea. In reading the proposed changes, though, I did catch something that concerns me. I'm very much appreciative that we have minimum foot candle power listed. And the actual code also then says average when you actually read down to it. I'm concerned though, I'm a fan of dark skies and I'm a fan of not too bright lights. I recall that some of the city standards may specify, I believe 3000 as the color spectra for lights. But why does this ordinance lack a maximum intensity? Is there a risk of too bright lights in areas either blinding pedestrians or cars or others that may be nearby? And if this is covered in the public works standard, I would, if someone could please comment on that, that would be appreciated. But I did note that this lacks a maximum luminosity. Thank you, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Dana, do we have anyone else?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Miller, I believe this came through Community and Economic Development. Would you like to introduce the motion?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would like to recommend an action on this and motion to approve. With that being said, I'll begin with that. Motion to approve AB 22-012, an ordinance amending MBMC 19.06.110 relating to street lighting as a first and final reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Miller, second by Mr. Rosen. Ms. Miller, you want to lead the discussion?
Absolutely. I think this is, we're right on target going into the future to think ahead and to supply lighting and really be conscious and aware of how that lighting looks and the fixtures and whatnot ahead. So I'm excited about this.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen, anything to add?
Nope, just glad to see some consistency with our lighting going forward.
Thank you. Any other council member have anything to say on this or any further questions? Mr. Elwood.
I just have a question. I was not able to attend this meeting, and I think Mr. Garcia attended in my stead, but I am curious about the question that was just posed about maximum lighting, because I know in the past when we've talked about lighting and illuminating North Bend, there has been considerable concern about being too bright in the area and so forth. So I'm just wondering if that was discussed during the meeting, and if so, what was the context, and if no, could staff please just respond to that? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stemming.
So this proposal did not touch at all or discuss or research the topic of the amount of lights. All we were looking at was the aesthetics and making sure that we had electrical power in our downtown. So a future amendment on, our dark sky or the amount of foot candles, would usually be a public works review and proposal.
Okay, so if I'm understanding it, we'll electrify the lights. If it's too bright, we can always fix that.
This proposal adds a plug to the bottom of the light.
Perfect.
Basically.
Thank you. The bluntness of that was awesome. Yeah. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Yeah, great clarification. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Motion before you is to approve AB 22-012, an ordinance amending North Bend Municipal Code 19.06.110 relating to street lighting as a first and final reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. Thank you very much for that. Next item on our agenda is item number 10. AB 22-013. This is a resolution setting a public hearing date regarding right-of-way vacation. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor indicated, this is a resolution initiating and setting the public hearing date to consider vacation of right-of-way along North Bend Way, adjacent to what is now the Rio Bravo restaurant. If you take a look at the last page in the packet, you'll see the legal description of the exhibit, which indicates the area to be vacated. It's the area, the perimeter of that area is in the black bold print. And then the area to be dedicated for the compensation of this right-of-way is the other triangular shaped area that's noted as the proposed right-of-way conveyance on that same page. If council passes this resolution tonight, the public hearing will take place at the March 1st City Council meeting, followed by an ordinance approving the vacation of this right-of-way. Staff is working on design of a sidewalk replacement and roadway improvement project that is currently scheduled for construction this summer along this stretch of North Bend Way adjacent to Rio Bravo. And the right-of-way vacation and dedication will clean up the property line issues, which currently have private property overlapping McClellan Avenue and our adjacent park and ride lot. The private property that is being provided as compensation is the same square footage as the right-of-way to be vacated. And the property owner has verbally agreed to this exchange of property. The right-of-way vacation and dedication will allow for the full build out of North Bend Way, future improvements along McClellan Avenue, and future improvements of the park and ride, and for the property owner to make improvements to their parking area. So I think this is a win-win for everyone. Staff recommends moving forward with this resolution, initiating and setting the public hearing. And I can answer any questions council may have.
Thank you. Before we move to public comment, Mr. Elwood, you have a question? Mr. Elwood?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for that. So I'm clear, there's a verbal agreement, but this is the first step in the process. And then after this, we'll get more concrete agreement between the swapping of properties, which, as you said, are the exact same square footage. So there's no gift of public services, no gift of public funds, none of that stuff. But essentially, we need to get through this phase in order to get to the next phase in the contract and the agreement. Is that correct?
Exactly. I think it's RCW 3579 requires us to schedule a public hearing prior to accepting this ordinance. So just like you said, this is the first step. We'll set the public hearing for September 1st, and then council will have the opportunity to approve the ordinance after that for the right-of-way vacation.
Great. And just to be overly clear and transparent, along in this process, if the property owner or if council decides that this is not the right path or the right agreement, there's still opportunity to amend or back out of it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Hey, Tom, excuse me, what is that date again? I missed that, if you don't mind.
What is it dated again?
What was the date that's going to be showing up again?
It'll be at the
public
March
hearing.
1st city council meeting, the public
March 1st.
hearing followed by the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cullen, did you have a question?
I love this project. I think it's great. My question is, and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there any way to make it not that weird crisscrossy pattern at Rio Bravo, and we can even it out parallel to the streets? Does that make sense?
Are you talking about their sit down area where they have people sit outside the restaurant to?
Well, you
eat
know,
out there?
it's kind of like a triangle right before the parking lot.
I believe if I may, I think you may be misinterpreting the maps. That's what this change is intended to do, is to eliminate the odd triangular shape of the lot and the right of way.
That would be
Maybe
great.
misinterpreting. Yeah, thank you.
We'll basically extend sidewalk down in front of Rio Bravo and around the corner around McClellan there.
Yeah.
And by giving them that, by vacating that right of way, and then they'll dedicate that triangular shape on that last page of the packet there back to the city, which is already McClellan and the park and ride.
So that's going to be behind Rio Bravo and in front of Rio Bravo?
Just in front of Rio Bravo right now. And then I believe our planning department's looking at more of kind of a master plan for the park and ride, McClellan and William Henry Park this year to kind of see what we want to do for improvements for that whole area.
Thank you.
With that, we'll see if we have any public comment. If you would like to speak on this item, please indicate in the chat box or by *9, and we'll call upon you. Dana, did you see anyone?
No, I do not.
Thank you very much. Mr. Loudenback, I believe this is you.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Motion to approve AB 22-013, a resolution initiating and setting a public hearing date of March 1st, 2022 to consider the vacation of a portion of North Bend Way right-of-way adjacent to 247 East North Bend Way.
Thank you. That's a mouthful. Ms. Miller, were you given a second?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much. So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Lautenbach, anything to add to the conversation here?
Well, Tom picked, certainly formed a meaningful word picture of what this is going to be. The map does show it. Basically, we're taking a triangle and we're cutting it off and we're making a blunt end, and everything's going to be right with the world. We're going to have a rectangular parking lot and no burritos will be harmed in the formation of this right of way.
Thank you for that. Ms. Miller, anything to add about burritos or other?
And all is right in the world. Thank you, Ross. This is a good project. I hope it comes through.
Great. Any other council member wish to speak on this item? Right. Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve AB 22-013, a resolution initiating and setting a public hearing date of March 1st, 2022 to consider the vacation of a portion of North Bend Way right-of-way adjacent to 247 East North Bend Way. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries and it is unanimous. Thank you very much. With that, ends the regular bill agenda this evening. We'll move on to mayor, council, and administrator concerns and initiatives. And find the order. Mr. Lautenbach.
Thank you, Your Honor. We certainly have had an interesting last couple of weeks when it came to refuse collection, and thanks to everybody who gave us your input. Thanks to those involved in the city and the contractor for arranging the pickup service that we had. And I think we're all happy to hear that the contract strike has been resolved and that trash pickup has resumed. So get your cans out. And that's about it tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen.
Thanks, Your Honor. Any chance maybe you or Mr. Regos could give us an update on what the city is attempting to do with reduction in bills for the residents on the Republic side of the trash equation? I know that a lot of us have been talking about, hey, what can we do? And I'd hate for 3,000 residents to have to make 3,000 phone calls and get 3,000 different answers. Is there a chance the administration might be able to assist us with that? And if so, could you give us an update?
Sure, I'd be glad to comment on that for Mr. Regos. Yes, we are in conversation with Republic about that issue. We have made note to them that we are aware of many residents getting a variety of answers to that question, and we do expect to press that case. So there is a conversation underway. We don't, of course, have a solution to announce at this time.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, it'll certainly, I think, be better if the city goes after it than each individual homeowner. So thank you very much for doing that. We all appreciate that. That's all tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Gottheld.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Elwood.
I have a lot to say, but I'm going to say nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Miller.
I'm going to go a slightly different direction, and MLK Day was just yesterday, and I wanted to read a quote that I find one of my favorites, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. No matter how educated, talented, rich, or cool you believe you are, how you treat people ultimately tells all. Integrity is everything. So I wish everybody a safe and happy week.
Thank you very much for those sentiments. Ms. Cullen.
I would like to say thanks for the public works workers that went through this incredible snowstorm during the holidays. We're probably away from their families 2 weekends in a row and did the best that they could with the tools that they had. And I would like to prepare in the future for snow events that I think are going to continue on and give them better tools to work with. So thank you, Mayor Rob.
Thank you. Mr. Jocelyn, welcome again, and you get to back cleanup tonight.
Well, good evening. Nice to see you all. I wanted to pick up on Mary's comment about Martin Luther King Day, just having listened to a podcast about his legacy and presenting his thoughts and ideas to third grade children. They then asked the kids what question they might have asked Martin Luther King Jr. And one of them said, well, I'd ask him if he ever wanted to quit. And I thought that was just lovely. And I think it's applicable in these times with the trash and the snow that we're still getting. My cans are on the street, Ross. Just want you to know. It's got the carcass from my Christmas turkey in it, and it's kind of stinky. So all of us have come through that. And again, acknowledgement to staff. I drove by just to tell them thanks. They were opening my trunk and I said, no, I didn't even bring any trash. I just came to say thanks. So with that said, I want to appreciate efforts of staff to build partnerships and working together with other cities, like exhibited in the housing action plan that was in the consent agenda tonight. I think that's beneficial to everybody if we can leverage resources and do work together in broader communities to face issues that we're all trying to address. I think that's great. And I will take note that the days are getting longer and there's hope in that. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miller, anything for the administration?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Well, some of my thunder has been stolen from me already in other announcements, but I'll just briefly mention, yes, the Republic Services normal pickup schedule has resumed. This does not mean their strike has ended, but locally they are back to work. We hope it stays that way. My thanks as well as city staff that helped man the garbage drop off at Torgerson Park last week and helped to pick up garbage in the neighborhood for those residents who needed that extra care, included some of our multifamily residents in the senior housing. So that was very, very important. It's also been mentioned that while maybe we've seen the peak of the Omicron surge, it's far, far from over. We here in the city are experiencing the highest ever amount of COVID-19 cases since the pandemic began. So just a reminder of the importance of following those public health guidelines regarding masking up, social distancing, and quarantining when appropriate. I'll go a little off script and say, please follow the masking guidelines. I was a little bit surprised and being in a few local stores this weekend and finding fewer people following those guidelines. Today we did learn, as was mentioned also, about the 4 rapid tests per household being available. It was mentioned one location you can go. You can also go to www.usps.com for additional information on that. A reminder to residents that due to the high community transmission of COVID, City Hall does remain closed at this time to the public through the end of January. We are monitoring the situation on a regular basis. And at the end of the month, we will determine if City Hall will need to remain closed into February or if we'll resume operations, whether limited or full. Council, as of this time, the January 25th City Council work study is going to be canceled. That is this coming week. Want you to be aware of that. And then finally, we will be now entering executive session regarding potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101I and property acquisition pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101B. We do expect this session to last approximately 60 minutes. There will be no action taken. And with that, I will ask that you let the public non-executive staff beyond council out of the meeting and end the recording.
Rebecca, can you pause the recording?
Currently still shorter.
Yeah, that's for Kenyon's ears.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Pleasure.
Tom.
I'll look
Thanks,
forward to
Tom.
helping you with your work study.
Okay,
Okay.
we are resuming regular session here. I have the time at 9:47. We did extend the meeting twice, first by 30 minutes and then by an additional 15 minutes, which would have taken us to 9:55. So we're just short of that time period. The no action is being taken tonight. That is coming out of that
Motion to
executive
adjourn?
session.
Is that what
I
you're
have a
asking
motion
for?
to adjourn. Thank you, Alan.
Second.
Second by Ms. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It is unanimous. Thank you all for your time tonight.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Safe
Bye-bye.
week.
Bye.